So first of all, welcome everyone to join our event. The topic for today is building high-performance cultures through goal settings. My name is Brian. I'm the MC for today's event and also the moderator for the panelist discussion. First of all, just a quick intro about myself. I am officially the founder of an HR tech company called OmniHR. At OmniHR, the core vision that we believe in is that HR leaders, people leaders, should be, a more strategic function. They should not be, burdened by administrative cycles. So what we have done is basically two things. One is that we have provided a tech platform that helps companies to do not only the administrative functions like, payroll, leave, and claims, but also, on end-to-end, a lot of HR automations, engagement, performance reviews, goal settings, all in the same system. The second part that what we do that is probably more relevant for today's event is that we have also founded an HR community called the People Collective. So this event today is organized by the People Collective. At the People Collective, what we do is, we wanted to really foster an HR community for, modern, progressive team leaders, people leaders to join as a platform for you to interact, meet people, like-minded people, share resources, ask questions, get advice from everyone. So that's what we do. The community has been founded for around a year so far. We have organized around 6 events. This is actually our first event in KL, and thank you everyone for signing up to our first event in KL. Basically, in every event, we want it to be something that is a bit more unique. Hopefully, everyone at the end, when you leave the room today, hopefully you can have a bit of an insight, some of the unique takeaways. Hopefully, you get to meet some meaningful connections from here as well today. So, just before we start and before we let our speakers to introduce themselves, also just wanted to quickly thank the Money Lion team for giving us this office space today for sharing. And then we also have our friends at Smart Bites who provided, very generously the refreshments for us today as well. Thank you. Great. So without further ado, I would love to, introduce our speakers today, and probably I would let them introduce a bit about their background. They come from very qualified, very esteemed background for our topic today. So first of all, we have Datin Sri. She has a wealth, decades of experience in HR management. He is currently the independent non-executive director at UEM Sunrise.
You want me to say something about
sure.
myself?
Yeah.
This is on, eh?
Yep.
Hi. Can you hear me? Is it on?
I think it's
not
on.
Okay, I'll stick this one. Yeah. Good evening, everyone. It's so nice to see a room full of people I don't know. When I walked in, I was expecting, the usual HR crowd that I'm familiar with, which is the older crowd. But when I walked in, it's so nice to see young people, young HR. I assume you're from HR, young HR people. So it's really nice to know that we have a next gen HR leaders coming along. So a bit of myself. I started my career in IT actually, and then moved to HR. So this is a good platform to be on, HR tech. I started in IT with Shell. Then I moved to telco. I spent more than a decade in Axiata. From the time it was founded, it was demerged from Telekom Malaysia as a mobile business versus fixed line business. So I started at the same time, I was hired at the same time it started. So I headed HR, then I started focusing on talent management in Axiata for the whole group. And some of you, I think here is a product of some of our programs. We did quite a successful Axiata Young Talent program in Axiata. And I know some of the people here are from there. You come onto our program. And so that's really kind of what I do best, I think, talent management, leadership development. I did have a step on modernizing performance management at HR in Axiata as well. And cultural transformation. How do we make organizations much more modern, much more innovative, much more forward-looking, much more agile, rather than the same old type of organization. So that's what I do.
Great, thank you very much. And then we have Sipa, who is the head of behavioral science and talent analytics at Petronas.
Yeah, that's a fancier title, yeah. Thanks. Yeah, hi, my name is Siva. Nice to be with all of you today. Thank you for coming, and despite all the travel and headaches. I've been in Malaysia for 5 years now, and prior to that I used to work from India, and prior to that in UK. I started my career after my chemical engineering, realized very quickly that I didn't like it, and realized I chose a wrong profession, and I jumped the bandwagon like many other people to come into the IT sector. I joined 2 different startups, one early stage startup and one mid-sized 200, 300 people startup. Spent a couple of years doing variety of things, sales, marketing, and brief stint in recruitment and HR. I did all of that, then I realized I really enjoyed all of it. I better qualify myself. Engineering is not a qualification to do all kind of other activities. So I did my MBA where I focused on strategy and behavioral science. Somehow it kind of took off. I've been a consultant for about 20 years, working across all sizes of companies, all kinds of industries, and over time realized that if you don't have the right people, it doesn't matter what the mandate is, it's just not going to get done. So maybe around 2014, 15 onwards, I started deep specializing in understanding people, how to get the best environment for people so that they can be whatever they want to be. So I started working with clients across, and past few years in Malaysia, I used to focus heavily at the leadership areas. Do we have the right leaders? How can we help our leaders be the best themselves? Every day they can energize themselves. And in that process, I was doing a lot of work with my current company, Petronas, and I joined them early this year. We've set up a behavioral sciences and talent analytics lab. I give it some meaning and shape, building a multi-skilled team around it, because our problems are very complex in a large entity like us, and it touches every aspect of the way we work. Right from safety to cybersecurity to performance management to employee engagement and culture, it touches every aspect of our lives. So we are finding meaning, finding ways to create a fun environment for our people, despite all the hardships that they have to go through. Yeah, that's what I do. I love enjoying doing all these conversations. Happy to be here. Yeah.
And then we have Radhika, who is the VP of People at Moneyline.
Cool. First of all, I wanted to say thank you to all of you, and I would really like to say that we are extremely happy to host the event and to have you all here. A little bit about myself. I think none of us is from an HR proper background, so I am not HR educated. My background is in finance, and that's what I've graduated, and that's where I started my career. Throughout the entire about 10 years plus, I've been actually in the startup scene, Malaysia, Singapore, Sweden, and I joined Moneyline early days when we were out of Q Central, a small company, about 100-ish engineers, and I've seen a lot of growth, and I've seen the company scaling from a B series to a publicly listed company where we are today. With Moneyline, I'm overseeing the way I create pretty much everything that is not engineering. So from finance to accounting to people, everything, employee life cycle, hiring, firing, and people processes, learning and development, so on and so forth, as well as legal and operations. So it's a role that brings on the table a lot of different perspective. Outside work, I'm very much passionate about startups and micro entrepreneurs. So I've founded a few projects on the side. I'm mentoring startups in Malaysia as well as in my home country, Moldova. And I think the role that I want to play today here as well, given the background that I have, probably it's more of a devil's advocate. So I'll always bring the perspective of a startup, and I'll probably disagree with a lot of things that you guys will be sharing. Or I'll try to bring perspective on how people processes are being built or how culture is developing for a small company. How many of you here are representing a small company, let's say less than 50 employees? Okay, we have quite a few. And what about less than 250? Because that's still small. Okay, so it's a big crowd. I'm happy. I would like to have like a conversation if we may, if we can, ask questions, interact. I will try to ask a question and to engage as well in this topic. I was extremely happy that this is happening. The people space is very closed most of the times. We're very focused on hiring people from each other and then retaining them. But I think we are less open to share best practices and to nurture a certain culture when it comes to people development within this space. And I would love to see more such events happening, maybe in one of your offices or any other space. So thank you a lot again for initiating this sort of events for Malaysia.
Great, no, thank you for your time and thank you for all your participation as well. Great. So before we dive into the topic, maybe actually just one thing to also share, what to expect in today's event. So actually there will be two parts. There's the part one where we'll have a panelist discussion, maybe around 30-40 minutes to share a bit of a perspective. Then the second part, to Radhika's point, we actually wanted to be a bit more interactive as well. So the second part, we actually wanted to have you guys, form into a bit of a small group, and we'll pass on some topics that you can discuss, and then hopefully some of you can share your findings from the discussion as well. So we really hope that from today's event you can have some meaningful connections, have a bit of a difference from a generic panelist event that you have been to. Great. So with that, let's dive into the topics today. So we are talking about performance reviews and goal settings. Let's first of all just set the background, the context for everyone. What do you guys think is the value, the purpose of a performance review? When do you think is the right time to do it? And who do you think should be the participant of these performance reviews?
I think performance review, I think the core of it all is a framework for execution actually. So you have, typically businesses have a plan and goals and vision and all of that, but you need to execute it. So the idea is to translate those big picture things into each and every employee so that they know exactly what to do, right? So that you finally, as a group, you achieve what you set to achieve, right? So without that whole framework, it's very, very difficult then to, especially as your company gets larger, to actually achieve what you set yourself to do. So it's really about translating that bigger goals to each and every employee and every team to make sure that it happens. It does. That you get to where you want to go, basically. That's my view about performance management. Okay.
I see it as two parts. There is a formal part and there's an informal part. Informal part happens every day. It should happen ideally every day. You need to know where you are towards whatever you are supposed to do. Sometimes you need to talk about it. Sometimes you don't need to talk about it. Your dashboard should tell you, your system should tell you. Technology is already telling everything, what's the progress on whatever you set out towards. Are you moving your needle or not? If it's already happening, you know where you stand with respect to whatever you set yourself as a target or a goal. Right? It could be you have to meet 10 customers extra in this month. It could be something you need to collaborate with 5 different teams in a quarter. You could say whatever, but it could be micro, it could be macro. Today we have all kind of technology systems telling us live every minute. At Petronas we run lot of plants, right? We have chemical plants, we have everything is distributed control systems. These technologies have been there for years now, where every second is calibrated. You know exactly how much production is happening. You know how much safety issues are happening. You know how much opportunities are there to do whatever you need to do to sell, deliver, supply chain. Everything is all tech enabled. So that means your performance progress is happening all the time. Whether you need to talk about it with someone or not is up to you. But if your culture is already there, you don't need to talk about it, then you really don't need a performance review process. But if you're not regularly engaging and there's not enough transparency of where you are, then you end up needing more and more of these formal processes. Right? As companies grow bigger and bigger, it gets complicated, right? That's where things kind of, hey, do we need this? Do we not need this? What's our culture? What's our micro culture? And so there is this formal part and an informal part. Both of them serve the same purpose, to provide you clarity and to whatever extent a degree of transparency to know where you are towards wherever you want to go. that's the core. How you want to do it, you figure it out. Like you want to put the process or not, up to you. Yeah.
Yeah, I think if I may to like add here from a startup or smaller company standpoint, you see the performance as a framework or as a tool to assess the health of the organization, right? You see it as a tool to identify your top talent and to reward it. You see it as a tool to identify the lower performing talent as well, to take some actions there. But when you do it, who does it, how often, what tool do you use? This is a process that has to be continuously developed, continuously iterated, based on where you are as a company, based on how big is your team, based on are you remote or are you in office? All this, the process itself, it has to be evolving. The fact that you've said, this year for the year end does not mean the next year you'll have exactly the same process. Looking back at, how we started the performance cycles with Moneyline, I think you can have it quarterly, right? And then when the size of the team is growing and it becomes a burden for your managers, you start to think, do we do this to help them, or do we actually take too many business hours from the business? At the same time, we look at the forum itself. What are we trying to assess, and what is the goal? I think the main role that we have here as people leader is to always challenge the need of running a new process. The default mode for us, for at least for where I'm coming from, is no, we don't need a new process, we don't need a new tool. Why do we want to do it? And how does this help us move the needle towards where this business needs to go? So for a small company, actually a company below 50 might not even need a tool or process at all. The team is so small, everyone is visible within the work, the goals are clear, there is a lot of communication during work time, so there is no need for you to send the form and to check how you're doing. However, I 100% agree that a continuous feedback is something where you should invest probably a little bit more time. You should train your coach your hiring manager, your managers, to be able to provide that feedback real time. You don't want to wait 3 months, 6 months, or 12 months to tell someone that he or she is a top performer, because they need to be recognized on time. And you don't want to wait for 3 or 6 or 12 months to tell someone that is a low performer, because obviously the business is losing on that talent. So again, to summarize, I think the starting point is you don't need it. The starting point is really work with your leadership to be able to provide that feedback, to recognize the talent, and to move fast on low performers. As you grow as a business, there is a need to formalize certain processes, and how you do it, when you do it, what tools you use, is really, it has to be a part of your definition, or to reflect your business state. Don't copy what Google is doing, Netflix or Spotify, because it's just not going to work.
Yeah, if I can add, what you've done, Rodika, is actually list down the important ingredients of a good performance management system, right? Clarity of goals, continuous feedback. If it's small, the communication is even already there, is obvious, right? I always work with big organizations, so communication can be very, very fuzzy, so people might not know what is the bigger goals of the organization, and you have to communicate that very clearly. Managers doesn't see it as a chore to coach or improve the performance of their people. Like you say, when the team is bigger, it can become a burden, right? How many one-on-ones are you going to have? You've got work to do as well. So if you think about it, all the ingredients are there, and you translate it to a big organization. So what sort of framework do you need to make sure that still happens? Those ingredients are running and chugging along, so that people are not unclear. So if you think about a continuum of a good performance management, I always think of HR processes as the continuum. The worst, at one end, the worst part is that people are not clear. I come into this organization, I don't really know. They've given me a job description, but I don't really know how I'm measured, how I'm tracked, what is the feedback like, am I doing well, am I not doing well, what is the bigger picture, what do we really want to achieve, what's the business model, and then and suddenly at one time, a bonus lands on your paycheck, and you don't really know what that bonus is for even. Can you imagine that kind of organization, right? Very, very unclear. But on the other end of the continuum, it's a culture. High performance becomes a culture. It's the way we do things around here. You know what to do. You can have easy conversations with your boss to say that, I think things have changed. We need to move the targets or whatever. And you are developing as well. I mean, a good performance management means you are growing, you're not just hitting the targets for the company, but you are growing as an individual, because you need to do that, because next year they expect more of you, and you need to grow together with the company. So a good performance management system in one end of that spectrum must be about development as well, people development. It cannot be just about tracking and monitoring and, what they say is a rear window view of your employees' performance. It's about looking forward. It's about how do I build a better team? How do I build myself? How do I create a better culture so that performance becomes a norm? It's a normal outcome of that, right? A better ecosystem, open and transparent culture. You can say that, what are you doing? I'm doing this bit. What are you doing in the other functions, the other departments, so that we have one common objective. So, it's like things are clear. You come to work, you know what to do, right? So that's how I see performance management.
If I just want to add something just to continue. If all of you wants to know, are you doing a good job or not with this whole process, you should be open to feedback as well, because we are always saying that we encourage managers to provide feedback to their team members, but we, the people team, sometimes are not ready to take the feedback. So what we also try to do, like every process that we would launch, take feedback from your people and try to hear them out. Was this useful for them? They try to listen to your managers. Was this heavy or not for them? Was this the right time or not for them? And with that feedback on the process itself, learn and improve. The other way, I think when you start growing and the companies or the team becomes a little bit bigger, you start getting different types of personalities in the team. Try to offer a space for those people to object towards the review that they were, or the conversation that they had with their manager, and try to be that middle person or team that is there to listen and to support both the manager and the team member. So these are some, I think, additions to a certain process that you would start adding once you grow and once you evolve from we're just a startup and we're just winging it and doing it every day the way we are just trying to survive it. But when you are getting bigger and your team evolved and the culture is evolving, those feedback loops that come from the team to the people team are very, very much important, and that's the main source of truth to how to move forward and how to design your processes, not what, again, Google, Spotify, or Netflix are doing. Your people know it better, and your managers and leadership also knows it better, what they want and how they want to drive their team.
That's great. I think a lot of very insightful learnings here. Definitely, fully agree that performance reviews should be an extension of the business day-to-day operations, and all of these processes should be iterative and along the size of the business, grow and experiment and see what works best for the team. I guess one important element in performance review is definitely how do you critique the employee's performance? How do you judge them? And there's always a goal settings element that come in. How do you think about when it comes to the organization? Organization probably have an objective. Distributing that objective to the team and the role that HR plays in this, because a lot of times we have heard of managers or employees not knowing how to actually set up a goal and how does it align to the organization objective.
Oh. Yeah, you do say something?
Sure. This is my favorite topic. So setting the goal itself, what goal is a good goal? What is good enough? I take it one end, there is what I'd simply call as the business as usual, perform agendas. And then there is a huge amount of transform agendas. You're radically changing. The way you set goals for doing things that are incremental is very different to the way you set goals that are transformational. Right? When you're doing things that are incremental, sometimes context of the company matters, if it's capex heavy or not capex heavy and all. I'm keeping that aside for a while. Yeah. If you know your people can achieve 80% of that goal, whatever that is, somehow with enough stretch they can achieve 80% of it, but they have absolutely no clue whatsoever where the remaining 20% is going to happen from. They have no clue at all. Then you probably got a good goal. That's a good target. Whatever that could be. It could be customer interactions, it could be revenues, top line, bottom line, power savings, you name it, whatever goal you put, it doesn't matter. You know, I can do 80% of it somehow with stretch, with imagination, with creativity. I can do 80%. The remaining 20%, I have zero clue. Then you're really creating a culture that pushes itself on BAU stuff. But if it is transformation, you've never done things before, and you're a startup and you want to grow fast and so on and so forth, simply go by 10x. Cheaper, better, faster. Pick one. Don't pick all three. How aggressive can you think? If you're going to put an interim timeline, interim metric, 2.5x and 5x, that means you want to grow 1000%. You don't want to grow 20%, 30%, 40%. It makes no difference. It doesn't change behavior. It doesn't change mindset. Your goal setting is 1000%. When you hear that, you should laugh out loud. Are you out of your wits? Do you have any clue? Do you understand the business? That should be the starting point. It should feel impossible. When you feel impossible, you'll put away all your typical traditional thinking processes. It just doesn't work. So the goal is so lofty that you have to change the way you construct your whole thinking process. How will we ever achieve that?
Yeah.
And that's the way the stretch of the goals is. One end is business as usual, perform agendas. There, the real stretch is 80% knowing. And the transformation agendas, 1000% improvement minimum. And you need to work towards that. What time frame you figure it out. Aggressive enough that it will change the way you think about everything. In that somewhere you will fall in that spectrum. Then you got good goals. It could be micro goals, it could be enterprise goals, doesn't matter. But the goal spectrum, good goal spectrum is in that space.
Yeah, I was going to add, Brian, you know, I think what you described is this, I don't know whether you've heard of the term BHAG, big, hairy, audacious goals. Yeah, so yes, I think if your goals, I mean, as a company, I mean, a lot of you here probably work for smaller organizations. You must have a big, ambitious goals that you want to go for, and but you still need to translate that somehow, because that is multi-year. Yeah, I want to grow 10x. I want to be, you know, number one. I want to be in 10, 15 countries. I want to be international. Whatever that big, hairy, audacious goal is, you still need to translate it to a time frame that is reasonable for an employee, right? So there's such a thing as, you know, and also I think goals are of different types. There's a qualitative, quantitative, you know, you give a salesperson typically a quantitative goal, you know, so much revenue or so much cold calls or whatever. But you have also qualitative goals, you know, I don't know, in a sales setup, what is a qualitative goal, right? Perhaps the number of that's the quantitative, but the qualitative goal is something else. But there's also things like what I'm familiar with is lagging indicators and leading indicators. I think you have to think about this as well when you set a goal. There's a goal that where it's, you know, the output, you're measuring an output and you know when you get there. But there's also things like leading indicators. That means what are the ingredients you want to monitor to make sure that you get to the goal? right? Leading indicators is quite powerful in my view because you don't necessarily just want to measure the outcome, but you want to measure the ingredients, yeah, to get you there. So, and another thing is that if you have a long-term goal, you might want to break it down into milestone goals. You know, I want to achieve this by a certain year, but what are the milestones I need to achieve? So there's many ways, I think, to set goals. You have to think about the time dimension, the quality and quantitative type of goals, and also what is the forming the goal? What are the ingredients, like I said? You know, those are important things to consider when you're setting goals, I think.
How many leaders here have roadmaps and clear goals for their people team? Okay, one, okay. And how many of you here have clear business goals from a firm organizational standpoint, business goals? Okay, a little bit more hands are being raised here. I think point being made. The role or how I see goals acting for a startup is essentially to provide clarity and alignment on what are the key areas or priorities that will move the business forward. How are we going to do that, and who's going to be in charge of what? Now, many times for companies smaller than 50 people, this is a very much top-down approach. And the goals are being set by the leaders, and they would roll them into team level. But in many cases, that's up for the team leader or the team itself to decide how they want to implement on a team level those goals. You basically answered my questions because none of you, with one team here, leader exception, sort of replicated the business goals and drove people-oriented goals at your level, right? So that doesn't happen for a small company, and it's for various number of reasons. So the role of HR here is to drive a lot of alignment, and how I also like to describe the role of a people team in a smaller company. I see it as a product team. How many of you have product managers in your companies? Okay. And do you all know what their role is and what makes them successful? Right? So if you think about a comparison, the closest that I can come up with is a people role in a smaller entity is literally a product role. You are successful not by doing the job yourself, but you are successful by connecting the dots and connecting various stakeholders. This is what makes a product manager successful, and this is what makes an HR or people leader successful. Same goes with the goals. You are successful when you understand those goals and when you can align the leaders with the people in their teams to drive even better the vision, to make it even clearer. What else do I have here? I made a few notes. Yeah, so basically the big difference, I think, when it comes to small and big again is that, and we started already to drive people roadmaps about 2 years ago. And when I think about this process and how we are doing it, it's a big alignment on what the business needs us to do. We start from there. Where do we see ourselves, or what do we need to achieve in 2024 or 2025? Is this a year of growth? Or is this a year where we will optimize everything internally and externally? From there onwards, we will start putting certain things on our roadmap. Then obviously we have so much feedback given to us and so many tools to collect that feedback. So you want to incorporate that as well in your roadmap. We run ENPS or employee surveys on a certain cadence. So you would also collect certain areas of focus and map it into your roadmap. And obviously you have talented team members. that are working with you, that are on the ground, that are very close to the team members, to the rest of the team, so they know, like, hey, what I got this year, I feel like retention is a little bit of a concern. So we need to focus, 2024 to build a stronger strategy to retain people. Or I feel like if we are growing so much in 2024 and we want to double the size of the company, probably many of you are already given this target by your leaders, that has to go into your strategy as people leaders, right? You need to start thinking about your brand, you need to start thinking about your hiring sources, you need to start thinking about the people in your team, the platforms, so on and so forth. So again, summarizing, it's literally about bringing clarity and vision. When the team is smaller, it's very much driven top-down. As you grow, you start to take input from the bigger group, and your role here is to connect the dots and to make sure that you're strong communicators and that you are driving that message across the board.
Great, that's a really good way to summarize it. I guess, since some of the goals are set by the employees, sometimes leading indicators like more transformational goals. How do you guide the employees to set more ambitious goals? They'll be like, I'm going to be judged among these criteria at the end of the year.
Yeah, that's an important consideration, right? Because most employees want to play safe. They'll probably set a goal that they can achieve and not stretching, whereas you want them to stretch. And stretching is good for them because it will grow them as well. So they need to know that. So I think, one way I've seen it before is that you do give stretch goals to employee and you give them a bigger incentive when they achieve those stretch goals, right? So they can, then they know there's a safe goal, okay? They might not get anything or they might just keep their job if they achieve the safe goal. But if they stretch themselves, it's a bit of a carrot at the end. That's one way, of course. And there's other ways also, because like I said, performance management is really about growing your people as well. And when the people grow and they see this, they're being developed at the same time as they're achieving the outputs that you're looking for, then they can go on to bigger roles and bigger challenges and bigger goals that they can do for the company. So those are some things that can entice employees to really push themselves, right? And nobody wants to be in the same job, doing the same thing year in, year out, right? I don't think anybody wants to do that. They want to achieve more. They want to achieve more year on year. So to do that, you have to give them. You have to show them that by doing more, by stretching themselves, they're going to just grow and be better, and therefore they can be made responsible for bigger goals in the future. So that equation of development being part of performance management is very, very key, actually. Otherwise, we'll all be doing the same thing year in, year out, and you wonder why are we not progressing? Because things are, your environment changes. People, businesses are getting tougher and tougher. So, and you all have bigger goals to achieve. So you have to put that in the equation. How do you develop your employees to be better? To be able to do more, to be able to do much more challenging things. I think that's very, very important for me. Yeah.
I was thinking now, where does the ownership stand when it comes to career growth? Yeah. And I'm curious, actually, what you think, because there are three dimensions of it: the employee, the manager, and then the HR team, right? So where is this ownership actually going to? So how many of you think that the HR team is responsible to grow someone's career? Okay,
nobody. Not even one.
Okay. How many of you think that the manager is responsible to grow someone's career? Okay.
More than one.
Yeah.
And how many of you think that the employee, the team member, is responsible too? Okay, and how many of you now think that it's a shared effort, right? And it has to be a mixed approach. So that's I think where a way to answer the question, how do you help the employee to set ambitious goals? And I think the question for us is more, what is the demographics and who are the people that we hired, right? If you have a bunch of smart and hardworking people, many times they will do more than you expect them to do. Like, I think in this space actually, and I'm coming from Europe, where it's a different working culture, right? Here, people work hard, and more often than we would have to tell them, take a break. It's okay to take 5 days off, and we will pay you for that. It's okay to go home at a certain time. Sure, there are times when everyone needs to go together and just get shit done, as we say here. But more often, people just, like, if they have a good intent, they will do their best to do the job. Now, when you set the goals, the starting point, of course, you want them to set it for themselves. But that's where the manager comes in, right? And if someone notices that, hey, I have a few people in my team that are taking a really relaxed approach to their goals, you move it up and say, look, here's your peers, here's you, and it doesn't match. If you want to grow your career, because that's essentially how we grow, by challenging ourselves, you have to step up the game. But I really see it as a shared effort, and I really don't think the people team or the HR team should be, the one blamed for or expected to drive a goal setting at an individual level. A career is being designed by yourself, by me. I know the best what I want to do, and I use my manager as a means to get there. That's at least how things are being seen on my end.
I think sharing a big company perspective here is not really going to help. So let me go back, flashback a little. Somewhere around 2016-17, when I was in India, we started a project as a consultant. I was with Conferry for about 14 years, and we set up a project called Next Big 100. The idea was to focus on 100 startups in India and work with their founders to help these founders do whatever they need to do. If they need funding, we get funding, we connect them to other companies. That was the job. We were facilities, a non-profit effort that we did. We ran it for about 3 years, two and a half years almost. Through that process, I got to know a lot of startups, early stage, 5-10 people, garage, right up to about 300-400 people, furniture companies, so on and so forth. So the goal setting and what is a goal, I could see an evolution there. When you are maybe up to 20-30 people, usually if the founder is a very strong, super strong character, their voice is the only voice that matters.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they actually discuss together. Many of them discuss together. Because when you're 20-30, everybody has a hand in the, what are we doing? What's going on? What's working? What's not working? Everybody gets to know everything. There is no, it's too small. They just talk to each other every day. So the vibe is very different when you're 20-30. Then everybody can together think through, and there's a cash flow issue, really. You want to know, will we have enough money to take home in the next quarter? So free cash flow is a problem at that stage. When you're doing that, you need to be together in goal setting. So no one person really dominates unless the founder or the investor has got a very strong voice and he or she thinks that's the only voice that matters. I have seen that also. So that is that. But when you're gone beyond the 50 and you're reaching the 100, 200, the mid-size, you're trying to scale up, then it's purely aspiration. How hungry you are. Can you exceed and push yourself really hard? And that becomes a real challenge. And that's where not just one or two, maybe you need about, on a group of 100, you need about 10 people who have a good voice on what a good goal looks like. Yeah, 10, 12, something like 1 in 8, 1 in 9, if they have a good view, you're probably safe. Because they will steer the rest of the people. So it purely depends on who the people are, how hungry they are, and what's their business context. How much cash do you have to run your company? If you have enough cash, you can plan some way. If you don't have cash, you're quarter on quarter, you're in a different league. Your pains are very different. But if you're stable enough, you have enough funding, enough flow, then you can think through differently. Large companies, maybe UEM, other Axiatas who are here, you are slightly larger, right? So you have enough cash flow to figure out how do you want to manage goals. And that's when your customers will start dictating, your competitors will start, your regulators will start dictating, hey, I want you to do this, I want you to do that. And this much is good, and your boards and everybody else starts having a view on what a good goal looks like. And that has to be cascaded down. You don't have a choice. You don't have a choice. The moment you are listed, you surely do not have a choice. You go listing anywhere. You go to Bursa, go to NYSE, the same. You're listed, you're finished. So your goals are set by your stakeholders completely. The CEO's goals are set directly by wherever you listed. They control it. After that, you got to get it done somehow. Yeah. So I see the spectrum of goal setting and need for alignment very differently. Equally a multinational, my previous firm, Conferry, 55 countries, 9,000 people, but each country had about anything between 40 to about 200 people. The way the goals were globally standardized. You are a certain level, this is your range, that's your goal. You got to generate so much revenues, you got to be productive so much time, you got to deliver so much customers impact. The metrics were clear, 8 or 10 metrics, standardized by level. You're an executive, you're a consultant, you're a receptionist, your goals are very clear, globally standardized. No difference. Your performance is seen monthly at that time, now it's daily, you can see what your performance is daily basis. Transparent, you know what it is, you know what your goals are, preset, you don't have a choice. You do not have a choice. You can exceed, but you can't under. You got under, you get fired very easily. But Conferry is a high performance company. Fire, hire, both happen easily. And so, blunt. So you have the spectrum of global standardization. You have the spectrum of completely collegial, friendly. We know what our reality is, let's figure out. And then you have the mid path where you kind of get listed and stakeholders drive what it is. Immaterial, which only one thing, whatever your boss's goal is, somehow get it done. That is the rule. So it depends on who the boss is, that get it done. That's all that matters.
Can I just check the HR, the audience here? Are you all from HR? All? Anybody not from HR? Okay, well, largely it's HR. Okay, just curious. because I want to say that HR does play a role in performance management. Yeah, at the end of the day, yes, the employee does own his own career, I think, definitely. Nobody, you better own that as an employee. But HR plays a big role. HR plays a role in setting the right standards, I think, the standards of performance. What's the right performance level, for employees? Setting those values, and also training the managers. Yeah. The managers is the closest to the employees, is to make sure the managers are fully trained to be able to set great goals and competent at managing people. Because that's where sometimes the weaker link is in an organization. If HR doesn't do that, train the managers well, you don't have a good, you just promote people and not care for whether they're a good manager or not, but yeah, their responsibility is people first and foremost, then that's wrong, right? So the HR has to play that role, because that's where, like I said, where you can amplify your performance in the organization through the managers.
And this is a brilliant point, especially for companies that are scaling fast or growing from 50 to 100 and 100 to 150, because many times those managers are being promoted internally. They are first-time managers, or they maybe experienced that outside a company for a short stint, and they don't know how to do things right. They have all the right intents, but they don't have the right tools. So 100% agree that the role that we should be playing is to give them the right tools and to be there with the managers and to help them grow. Fortunately or unfortunately, being a leader in a fast-growing company is sometimes a lot harder than being a manager in a company that's scaled already, because you will know what is expected of you. When the company is large enough, there is a scope, there is a business goal attached to that. Yeah. You join the company, you know, I'm expected to do that. For a company that is growing fast and the managers are internally moving up, they need to have the agility to grow at the same pace, if not faster than the company. Otherwise, they are left behind, because when you are doubling your revenue and your team size and they don't have this agility, it's really tough for them to be successful in the role. Because, as I said, they might have the right intent, but we need to help them to give them the tools.
This one is for smart bite people. If you have not checked, I would like you to check out this company called Licious. Yeah. Licious. Yeah. Licious is one of the unicorns in India. They started about 8-9 years back. The way they were thinking is a food delivery system. That's predominantly meat. They started off with meat delivery because you see, India is a market where meat is produced in one state, and by the time it goes to another state, storage systems, refrigeration, all that is really a challenge. So they realized for so much meat consumption, 1.5 billion people, right, your market size. So they said we'll start up sort of meat delivery through cold storage and hygiene and everything else neatly packed, just meat delivery. And now they do plant-based meat and all that. So when they set it up, it was like they just got up somewhere around funding, see, that's it. And they started off 5-10 people, and the goals are big believers of 10x thinking. I remember when I was interacting with them 2018-19, their goal was there were 5 cities. Next year they wanted to be in 15 cities, and 15 cities with, it's 3 times, but 15 cities with customer base increase so much more. Because 10x customer base today, they serve almost 80-100 million customers. It's like crazy. It's one of the largest food distribution companies in the country. They're just big believers of scaling, and it's all coming from the owners. The 2 gentlemen who are starting that, strong believers of growing aggressive growth. They didn't shortchange on anything. They said, we got to do it, let's prove it, whether it works, microbytes, and then they saw that there is a traction, there is enough movement, build up fast, real fast. So I think the way the companies grow, that's where there's a people element of it, and how does the mindset of the few people can shape the goal setting of a wider workforce is very prevalent. And if those few people at the top or the middle, it doesn't matter where they are, if they do not have enough hunger, you will find that you cease to exist. You become a nobody. So it is really important how hungry you are to grow. It doesn't matter which business sector. We want to be market competitive in whatever area that we are doing. We need to be distinguishing ourselves. That means the goals that we set are really going to be the anchor for us. Are we picking the right things? If it's not, are we pivoting fast enough? Right? Even in Petronas, right? We have so many startup businesses. We have Settle, now Stable. All of you Settle. If not, please use. Yeah, it makes your right from fueling to every other product much easier. We also have the carbon capture business, which is absolutely new to globally. It's new. It's certainly new for Malaysia. 100 people, 50 people, and you have Gentari, which is like now about 700 people. But it has hydrogen business, this business, everything is complete. These are all complete offshoots. They run their own HR, they run their own culture, they run their own performance reviews, goal settings. The way they create traction, each of them are given enough freedom to go do what you have to do. And same way, for goal setting, we have a process called PING. PING is a Petronas seeding investment for Petronas employees. If you are a Petronas employee and you got an idea for your own startup, you can pitch and Petronas will fund you, will give you paid leave for 1.5 years, 18 months for you to set up your own startup.
How much do you pay?
Full salary. You get your salary.
And any check for the
No,
idea?
if you want, whatever you want, you need to prove it. It's an investor. So just like you're going to a VC, just Petronas is a VC for you.
Nice.
Petronas has seed funding. We've funded so many startups already, more than 30 startups. This is seed 3, year 3 of funding. Every year, 10 to 15 employees' ideas get funded, and they go through the process. Just like any other startup, they get funded. They have a place to work. They have tech resources supported. Their salaries are paid, so they don't need to worry about their income per se. Personal income per se is given. All that you need is build your own company. So we find that people set goals differently there. Right? There are 2 people, 5 people. Sometimes they grow to 8, 10 people. Somebody sitting in Malacca, Penang, Sabah, KK. They all get their own ideas to do it. So it's all kind of goal setting. So hunger is a thing that I would like you to hold on to. How hungry you are. That's going to be the big differentiator for what's a good goal.
That's great. I really like a lot of the topics that we touch on. You know, I think like the core of it is like, you know, how can we find the right people and then bring in the culture.
Comes down to that.
That's great. I think like, you know, we'd love to dive a lot deeper into different areas as well, but just in the interest of time, wanted to see like, you know, anyone on the, you know, on the floor wanted to like ask any questions to our panelists, anything that you guys want to dive deeper into.
Maybe, yeah. What's your pain point in? I mean, I was going to say, what's your pain point in performance management? Are you all, your businesses are all, you know, performing at the best level they can be, or there's some shortfall? And where is that pain point, you think, in employees?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Bazik from Phenology. Just to give some context, so we are startup with less than 50 people. So I have two questions here. First question, how do we tackle employees who does not see the company goals or does not align with the company goals, but they are top performers? Okay. Number two, how do we tackle leaders who does not constructive feedback well, especially in managing the team?
Yeah.
Doesn't take what?
Constructive feedback.
Feedback. Managers.
50 or 50,000, the problem exists.
I'm going to ask you to clarify. How can an employee be a top performer but not achieving the goals?
Certain things is measured by delivery, product delivery.
Okay, so that's therein lies the answer. Maybe the goal setting is not quite right. It's not quite aligned to the business goals.
Is the attitude right of that employee? Like, do they have the right?
I'm not going to talk about that sections.
Some of them, yes, but it's also for leaders that clarify to HR. We are fine, we deliver, just ignore. Okay?
Yeah,
Is this a toxic employee?
Not really toxic, but doesn't mean that always top. They have a different thoughts.
you know.
The way we do it, culture above anything. But that might not be the answer to anyone. So even if someone is a top performer, for us it's very important to have, or for that person to be a strong cultural carrier. It might take time. It's not something that, and it's very hard in that case, by the way. When we are talking about top performers that are not working with the team, or that they think that they are smartest in the room, and maybe they are, but they're showing this a little bit too much, it impacts the rest of the team a little bit too much. So in the end, even if you are, okay, I'm not happy with this microphone, I'm not sure.
You understand?
This one. So in the end, even if the business is losing the top performer, you are winning on the culture, long term. But this being managed is a difficult process to manage.
Okay.
And on the leader side, I don't know if I have an answer for that. I mean, it's always going to be like this. There is no perfect environment. There is always going to be a manager or a leader or two or three that they do things their way. And they want their feedback and they'll say, I am, experienced enough to do things my way, and if my team doesn't want to listen to me, they have to change. There's always going to be that manager, fortunately or unfortunately. So I think our role here as people leaders is to actually learn how to work with different types of leaders.
Yeah, I was just going to say I was just going to say that's what makes HR work very, very interesting. Because, no one person is alike, or no two persons are alike, right? Every employee that in your company is very, very different. So that's what makes it super interesting. So, but, I'm still curious about your question around, he's a top performer, but he's on his own. You cannot be a top performer and be on your own. It's all about teamwork. It's all about, not you. It's not about you just performing by yourself. It's about you contributing to the success of the company, right? And that includes a lot of other parts to it. Your cross-functional, how you help each other, how you prop each other, how do you contribute to other functions even, right? Not just your job. So it cannot be, right? There is have you heard of this phrase that we've used in Axiata? It's not about a superstar, not about building superstars. It's about building a superstar team of stars. A superstar team of stars. So it can be not individually, they might not be superstars, but as a team, they're a superstar team. Because if you're building just superstars, then you won't get to where you want to go. Because they all have their own agenda, and they have you can't. Yeah.
I have a slight twist in the take. Yeah. I don't know who the person is, right? Naturally, I have no clue. You might want to consider the extremes, right? Is there an integrity issue? No integrity issue, not a problem. He or she is just not a people person. They just don't want to get it. So what? There are so many people who are on the neurodiversity spectrum. They might just not want to interact with people. They're happy to look at their laptop and get the job done, and that's fun for them. If he or she is having fun, so be it. We need to be inclusive as a bunch of people, to recognize people are like that. Some people like to be with people, some people don't like to be with people. It's okay. It's okay for you to be who you are. As long as you are not hurting someone, as long as you are not crossing the boundaries of integrity, or however way you want to define integrity, right? Then it's okay. Let them be. High performer, not performer, okay, fine, you figure it out, right? But he or she is not hurting anyone. They are not intentionally malicious. Get on with it. You got a good talent. He or she is getting the job done. Keep them. Be happy. Just recognize them. They are like that. Give them the space for them to be happy to be like that. They'll go a long way for you. They'll bat for you. Because you're creators, but they can be themselves, right? I know of CEOs who are on the neurodiversity spectrum in Malaysia and doing pretty well. They don't like to interact with people. Imagine a chief exec not wanting to interact enough with people and doing pretty well. It happens right across. So it's fine as long as you create an environment where I'm happy for you to be who you are. You recognize that. If it's integrity issues, that's no go. That will set a very wrong precedent. High performer, poor integrity is a disaster in the making for a company. Then I'll just call it off.
But I think, I agree with Siva, but there's also the team element. I think individual players, as much as possible, they need to have a team spirit. I think you cannot work it alone.
Yeah. Just that they might not express it.
Yeah,
that's okay.
They must not hurt each other. That's what he's saying. They must be a team player at the end of the day, right? They must want to work as a team. On your constructive, apa ni? The not accepting constructive feedback, right? We have many of that in our organization.
That will happen wherever you go.
That's again what HR role is. You have to find a way to get to them. If it doesn't, a person that they respect, somebody has to give him that feedback. Yeah. But it cannot be somebody that they don't respect, somebody that they respect. So it could be a mentor, it could be a board member, it could be the chairman, or it could be the CEO, whoever that they have some respect for. It has to be done. A person cannot continue to work without, accepting feedback, because it hurts. It hurts, using your phrase, Siva, which is a good phrase actually. It hurts other people if they don't accept that feedback.
Probably I shared this example with James or Tanya, I can't remember. One of my clients earlier used to be from a life sciences business, pharma business. Yeah, they were one of the largest generics manufacturers. The founder called to say, "So I have a problem with the head of R&D." Yeah, the head of R&D is 62 years old. I want him to retire. He's been the pillar of this company for so many decades. Every person that we bring in, nobody is good enough for the person. Nobody is good enough. Okay? And the team, there is a fear element. The team is scared, even though he has been there for so long. The team is scared to approach, and he doesn't find anybody in his team worthy enough. Okay? That's the thing. So I was like, okay, what do you want me to do? I was like, can you just go observe and say something to him? That was all it was. Go say something to him. And okay. And so we three of us created a space for me to just observe him in action. I saw him in action quietly, like a fly on the wall, for about 2 or 3 meetings of his teams, with large groups, everything. Took some notes and saw how much he speaks, how he engages, eye contact, others' response, how others behave with him when he speaks. All kind of notes. Came back, and this guy is a 6'3", heavily built, booming voice. And when he's like hit the table and speak. Like, he's already a huge guy. On top of it, like hit the table, makes loud noise. All that I did was just to record it and play it back to him. Just a mirror. I showed him just literally how others are reacting, just iPad recording, just 2 minutes of recording to say he's speaking and how others are reacting, how others are taking a step back, step forward, keeping shut, looking down, just a mirror. That's all he needed. He's a good R&D leader.
Yeah.
And he just said, I know what to do. You don't tell me anything, I know what to do. You know what he did?
That's excellent, actually. A real feedback, right? That's a real, real feedback. What I've seen is 360 feedback. Yeah. Sometimes when you want to coach or give feedback to somebody, you need data points. You cannot just say based on, they think you're just making it up, or, you're being emotional about things. So something that we've done before is, get 360 feedback on that person. Tell him, I'm going to get 360 feedback. So it's not just about me telling you, it's about what others are seeing in you, right? So that might help, because it's more than just you giving a feedback, yeah.
And I think for the 360, if you actually get the funds to get an external consultant to run the 360 review, that's even a stronger tool that you can get, or it's a stronger message that you can send. And it looks non-biased as well, because it's external parties, external consultant that is engaging different stakeholders to collect that feedback and to work with it.
Just give you the answer to what that guy did.
Yeah.
He just decided to sit like this. Every time somebody walks into his room, literally, he just takes his hand. He devised his own solution in less than 10 seconds. This is his own priming to remind himself to watch his behavior. His hands are tight. All he had to do was shut up. He just needed a reminder, and he devised his own reminder in literally less than 10 seconds. Siva, I know what to do. He just did this, watch me. 2 months is all it took for the people to laugh at him. Cynicism grew in the company so much. Let me see how long he behaves like this. People around him who have known him for 20 years, 30 years, saying, let me see how long he does it. He was relentless. His mirroring was all it took to realize it was, in his own standards, he failed. He didn't expect him to be like that in a room. Nobody ever told him, nobody dared to speak to him. So sometimes people are just not self-aware. Sometimes people are not just situationally aware. Self-aware, situational aware. You raise the awareness, sometimes you would have just unblocked whatever is in their head deep down. Nobody wants to be a shit manager. Nobody wakes up in the morning thinking, I'll scold at everybody. Nobody gets up to do that. So that means a situational problem or a self-awareness problem. So when you pick either of these situations, you would have just unblocked the thing. And let's see, they're all smart people. If they're manager, leader, they work for 5, 10 years, 15 years, they made enough money, they know what it takes to run a team. They know what it takes to do the right things. But nobody speaks to them like that. So 360, great idea. You can do it yourself. You don't need to be a 50 people company, you said. That means you don't have enough money to spend on a consultant to do a 360. Right? You don't want to do that. Just do it yourself. Record it, show it back to them. Put a CCTV in the room. If it's a Teams meeting, just record the Teams call. That's it. Just do it. All you need is a self-awareness raising thing. People will form their own solutions. They're all smart people. You need to trust that they are smart enough.
Actually, talking about young group like this, you all, I believe, a Gen Z or very, very young. You are open and transparent, right? I assume your employees wants to give feedback openly and transparently. In the old setting where a lot of old people, they might not want to do that. So you can, as HR, you can just bring a group of people together and talk about it and be open and in the spirit of openness and transparency. Just be open and give feedback in an open way. I don't know whether you have that culture, but given the age of this room, I think you can do that. Start doing that, Don't wait for formal feedback. Yeah. Just gather groups of people to give feedback to each other. And I think you probably what do you call it? Can't wait to do that, right? Because young people likes to give feedback. Yeah. You just HR needs to facilitate, organize, a bit of guidelines, what not to do, what not to say, where the boundaries of giving feedback. Just set the tone and encourage that kind of feedback openly to the person, actually.
But I think if you're asking for feedback, you're expected to act on that as well.
Yeah.
So I think that's
not necessary. Yeah.
Depends if you're doing it on a certain cadence and you are not acting on some of the feedback that was given to you, and then you ask them again for feedback and that was not resolved, they will just ask you,
Stop
so why are you asking me this if you're not done anything on what we already told you that is a challenge. So I'm very supportive of feedback, and we are doing ME and BSs for a very long time at Moneyline. But you do have to have, I think, the buy-in from the leadership team and also the intent to work on some of that feedback. You can't just collect data for the sake of collecting data, because then you're just, again, wasting a lot of time from the organization.
Vulnerability goes a long way. Yeah. If you're, say, for example, you're a 50 people company and he or she is a little senior, right? Then all you need is one volunteer to ask for feedback from others. Need not be that person. If one person asks, the peer pressure sometimes just works. Okay, fine. This person asked me for feedback, courtesy, I need to ask back. Right? Sometimes these things also work. So all you need is one vulnerable volunteer, and they can change the team dynamic. One asks, others will start. Second person asks, two people are asking. Okay, fine, I built myself, I'll ask. Right? Third person asks, for sure you end up asking. Imagine you're a 5-member team at a certain leadership team or whatever, managerial level. 4 members have asked for feedback. One of them is not asking, it just won't work. He or she will feel so guilty just for the sake of asking, they will ask for it. And that's an opportunity to create. So sometimes you can do it through just demonstrating vulnerability by one person.
Do we have time for one more question? Yeah. Okay. We should. Okay. Great. So I know a lot of probably interesting questions, a lot of directions that we can take the topic. I think let's in the interest of time, let's move on to our second session, which is a little bit of a workshop. So it would be great if you guys can form into a team of 3 to 4 people. Ideally, meet with someone that you have not talked to or you only met today, and then we'll be going around passing you some questions that will be good for you guys to spend 10-15 minutes to chat about it. I would also like to invite our panelists to maybe join some of the groups for discussion.
Cool.
If you guys
Just join the group.
Yeah.